Sailors who have spent nights out on the water, what's the sketchiest encounter you've had out there in the dark? 50 odd miles offshore on a sailboat, pitch black. Suddenly we hear a loud crack and the boat shifts an inch to port. Then silence for 20 minutes followed by another loud thump and boat shudder. Made our way quickly back to the coast. In dry dock there was a 2-foot diameter dent in the hull. I'm guessing a sleeping whale. So I'm just lying there, and something from the surface beams me like you wouldn't believe. When you're in the middle of the ocean and realize that if you got dumped in the water it is likely that no one would even notice you missing for a while, and it's a big freaking ocean to go looking in for one guy. And what gets me, since I'm mountains and mountains only kinda gal, is that with SARS on land we can estimate fairly well where a person is going and reasonably where they will take shelter. We are humans, after all, and a little bit of instinct does take over. In the ocean there's none of that. You are in clean, indistinct water until you are dead. I heard what I'm assuming is a whale breaching while it was pitch dark. It'd be cool if I could see it, but at night when I have no idea what's out there it was kind of spooky. Sounded like a lot of water shifting around and big splashes in the dark. I don't see what else it could have been. Not really an encounter, but we had a man overboard at 2 AM, 8 days into a 21-day sail from the Galapagos to Polynesia. Really heavy weather and couldn't snuff out parasail, and someone came forward without being clipped on and got knocked overboard. Took us about 25 minutes to get them back on board and 3 hours to sort out the lines, etc. In terms of encounters, huge groups of luminous jellyfish are pretty weird to see at night. Curious whales, dolphins are really cool. Probably the sketchiest is coming close to container ships during the night. Those things don't change course unless it's essential. 2 situations. 1. I was on a tanker somewhere in the middle of Indian Ocean. Graveyard watch. Fairly good weather. Good visibility. I notice a lighthouse light ahead of me. Looks far but it is very distinct. Flashes rhythmically. Quite bright. I check the radar. Nothing. I check the chart. Nothing for at least 400 miles. I continue to observe until it just stops abruptly. Freaked me out a bit. 2. Waters near Philippines. Quiet watch. Few fishing boats in the area. Suddenly I notice a very faint light dead ahead of me. Looks very far. Nothing on radar. Can barely see it. I thought I have some time until it shows up on radar, but something was telling me to alter course to starboard. So I did, and 1 minute after the alteration I was passing a tiny fishing boat by about 200 meters with one guy with a crappy torch on board. If I didn't act on my instinct I would have ran him over. The actual dark. It is pitch black out in the middle of the ocean. That can be quite unnerving. On the upside, on cloudless nights the night sky is breathtaking. The water is also breathtaking as well. Out at sea at night, no moon, pitch black. I'm talking shooting the crap with a shipmate and out of nowhere whoop. The loudest slap I have ever heard. My buddy literally screams, WTF, a flying fish, right in the face. That was 40 years ago. I'm still laughing. This is amazing. Scariest thing that ever happened to me was in port. I was a sailor on the USS Carr, stationed in Norfolk. There was a shipmate who had gotten himself in trouble and was being kicked out of the Navy. He was not allowed to leave the ship. I saw him on Friday carrying weights out of the ship's gym. Odd, but I didn't pay much mind. I had to come in for duty the next day and he had vanished overnight. We searched the entire ship from top to bottom 3 times over. No sign of him. We found out later he tied the weight from the gym to his feet and jumped overboard the night before. He washed up 3 weeks later when his corpse detached from the weight and floated to the surface. Full disclosure, this is not directly sailing related, but I am a sailor and have a creepy nighttime ocean experience to share. While guiding a night dive once, we had a massive female 7-gill shark follow us for the whole dive, just occasionally coming into our visibility before darting off. She was probably just curious of our lights or maybe using them to hunt, but it was just really unnerving to know she was around but unable to see her. That being said, I love sharks, and she did us no harm. They're usually super chill and not to be feared, but you can't help but respect any predator bigger than you are who while it follows you around in the dark. Yeah, that's gonna be a no from me. In fact, night dives in general. sailing just a couple miles off the Norwegian coast, in an old 14 feet dinghy all by my lonesome. Well, sailing is the wrong word. I was drifting in near zero wind, barely making a knot of headway. That's why I was still out there. I had planned to spend the night on a small island, but getting there took forever and it got pitch dark. No matter, I was safe enough and it was kind of nice to have the nighttime ocean all to myself, not a ship in sight anywhere. I had oars and could have rowed to my destination in an hour or so, but didn't feel like there was any need to hurry. Had left the outboard motor ashore because of hunting laws against shooting from a motorized vessel, and I was going after migrating geese. At my position it was calm and quiet, but all around the horizon I saw flashes of lightning so far off that I heard no thunder. As I relaxed and enjoyed the quiet spectacle of distant lightning, all of a sudden I heard someone or something draw a labored breath right next to me. It was unmistakably the sound of breathing, like from a half-strangled person taking a deep breath of much needed air. Not gonna lie, I briefly panicked before I realized it had to be some marine mammal surfacing for air close to my boat. Guessing it was a harbor porpoise as they are common here, but I never saw it in the darkness. Heard it again a few times, sounded like it moved further away and there may have been more than one based on the frequency. Of course sound carries far at night, but it really did sound like that initial breath was right behind me, close enough to touch. Shortly after the breathing sounds disappeared, the wind picked up out of nowhere and I had to scramble to adjust rigging. Made it to the correct island and made landfall about 20 minutes later, having gone from idly drifting on the current to skipping over the waves in a few heartbeats. I guess that distant storm dropped by to say hello. That's actually really scary. Maybe it's not the best idea to be scrolling through this late at night. Coming through a part of the Mediterranean with a lot of oil platforms. At night, I was Con. One of the other ensigns was Judd, and our navigator was Ud. Nav ducked into the chart room, so it was just me and the Judd when we saw what looked like another oil platform on the horizon. Only it wasn't showing up on either of our radars, it wasn't on the chart, and the laser rangefinder wasn't working. So the two of us are watching this thing get closer and closer, and we were about to call the captain up to the bridge. Judd had just picked up the phone, when Nav walks back into the pilot house. Takes one look at the two of us freaking out and goes, "You guys know that's the moon, right?" The quartermasters left that one out of the deck log. Underway, early March in a snowstorm, well east of Cape Cod. Moderate season ship is rocking pretty good. We lose power and go beam to the seas, except for emergency lighting, which was not much because our battle lanterns were garbage, and personal mini-mag lights. It's dark as heck at times. The worst part? You could hear the creaks and groans of the ship. It was intensified when the ship would take longer than normal to right itself. It made the ship seem much older than it was. At times like those, I would say to myself, should have went to college, dipshit. More weird and sketchy, but squid fishermen. Hundreds of them with white lights in the middle of the night and in the middle of what we thought was nowhere. There were small boats, so we saw the lights well before we saw them on radar. Kind of freaked until we got closer and realized what they were. It's great approaching them at night and the horizon is getting brighter and brighter before the first comes over the horizon. Annoying to sail through though. The ones with lights on are stationary, but it's the one without lights that is moving. But because you are blinded by the bright ones up, they are usually made of wood. Really annoying. I was on a friend's boat in the San Francisco Bay a good number of years ago. It was well past dark and I was enjoying the ocean breeze leaning over the gunwale. All of a sudden something black exploded out of the water while cutting loose this slobbery snarling bug. All I saw was a flash of crazy sharp fangs silhouetted by a black greasy looking mass before it crashed back into the water. After everybody came running to see why I was screaming and crapping my pants, it was explained to me that I probably saw a sea lion jump out of the water and surprise at the boat passing so close to it. Yet that sounds like a sea lion. They have that name for a reason. Not a night encounter but still sketchy. October 1986. Early morning. 0730. Steaming on the rum line from the Cape Cod Canal to Mt. Desert Rock. Skirting Matinicus. It was dungeon thicker fog. Visibility about 200 yards. No radar, so we were steaming along at 5 knots. All of a sudden my depth sounder showed a shoal below is at 140 feet. We were in 600 plus foot depth water according to the charts. I'm in a panic in the wheelhouse trying to figure out how we could be so far off course to be in 140 water. This was before GPS. We were getting sat-nav fixes every 30 minutes. About 2 minutes later, the sounds of hovering helicopters was on both sides of us. Vietnam vet, Marine Corps, Air Wing. I know what a chopper at low altitude sound like. After a few minutes the choppers lifted and went forward of us. My depth sounder had returned to 600 plus depth. I am standing in the wheelhouse scratching my head, trying to figure out what the heck was going on when the fog lifted. Ahead of us was a carrier battle group. Big carrier. Lots of auxiliary ships. Choppers everywhere. Sonobowis in the water all around us. We were in the middle of a carrier battle group doing exercises and an attack sub had just used us as a decoy to try to attack. That's absolutely insane. This happened in 1986. My wife and I were 2 days out of the Azores headed to Newport, RI. We were in our 60 feet Dutch built wooden trawler bringing it to the USA. It was green. It was a gorgeous night. 1-stroke full moon, gazillions of stars. Big pod of dolphins playing in our bow wake. Phosphorescent seas all around us. Flying fish bouncing off the cabin. Our wake was visible for at least a mile behind us. Glowing in the night. That night I had the middle watch. About 0330 I decided that since there were no running lights on the horizon and we were 200 miles south of the shipping lanes that it would be okay to turn our running lights off so I could really enjoy the spectacular light show Mother Nature was providing. Even woke the wife up early so she could see the light show outside. About 5 minutes later an American voice booms over the radio. Will the green fishing boat please turn your lights back on? They didn't answer my question asking who they were. There were no boats visible anywhere. No wakes. No glow. To this day I don't know who made the broadcast. When the sun came up there were no ships in sight. 300 plus miles from the nearest piece of dirt. Someone was watching us. Big Brother is everywhere. Not a boat or sailor, but back in 2014 I did a lot of IT work on offshore drilling rigs during their final construction phases. Basically, after the rigs went through most of their construction, I would be flown out there for a day or two to get all of the general networking and systems up and running. This included verifying the microwave data link back to shore. Now this was only about 10-20 miles off the CA coast, but it's still as dark as you can imagine out there. It's even quieter than normal because during this phase, there is maybe only 1 or 2 other people on board. Typically an electrician and a general foreman or similar. Sometimes only one of the two. Anyhow, I was working on a rig about 20 miles out from Long Beach, CA. I was going through some rough relationship issues at the time and wasn't in a great place mentally or emotionally. We didn't have internet on the rig at this point so I was pretty bored and caught up in my head so I decided to go take a walk. I ended up on the helipad smoking a cigarette and just looking at the stars. About 2 minutes later I almost crapped myself or jumped out of my skin. Maybe both. As I was sitting there, a very small Asian man tapped me on my shoulder from behind. He was wearing a high-vis vest and white construction helmet. He asked me for a cigarette and where the closest bathroom was. I gave him one and pointed him in the right direction. Didn't really think twice about it. Walked back down to the living quarters and passed the foreman on the way. Told him about the guy I gave a smoke to and he stopped walking and immediately turned around. Told me no one else was on this rig but him and I. I ran to the IT closet where they kept their security camera storage appliance but our post switch wasn't installed yet. No video. Nothing. We turned on every light source possible on the rig. Did a basic walkthrough but found no one or any traces of anyone. We also contacted our transport company which also always typically has a search and rescue team available. They flew over 4 SAR and 2 security personnel. They did the walkthrough of the entire rig. Every possible inch they claim. Took almost a full day. Never turned up. Still get a bit creeped out thinking about it. If given 3 wishes, one of them would be to know who what that was and where they went. Well, you were either hallucinating or found some kind of spirit. US Navy. Petty officer in charge of low visibility watch. Watch that is called when you are in the middle of the ocean and there is so much fog you can't far from the ship. Watches are stationed in different places on a ship. to listen, watch and record any activity. It is to make sure no one sneaks up or we don't run into another ship or boat. Anyway, I had just made my rounds and making sure everyone was in place and awake because it was middle of the night and pitch black. I was just about to check in with Bridgewatch and I get a call over the radio from 2 different watch stations. They reported movement in the water but was unable to see what it was. It sounded like something cutting through the water very fast. I called for the watch officer and I was already at the bridge, so reported it and went to investigate one station while the officer went and checked the other. With us posting at each, we both heard it, but could not see anything. The fog was so dense you couldn't see the water line. 2 different stations hearing the same thing. LHA is not a small ship. We were all tense. We were thinking the worst. Just then a break in the fog reveals that there are huge fish swimming around us feeding on the algae. The algae was luminous and as the fish would swim through, it looked like hundreds of shooting stars in the water. It was beautiful. Even these words can't describe the beauty. So my report read that it was a huge school of fish. The only people to witness it was the people on the watch. Working in the North Atlantic off the coast of Newfoundland. 33 meters waves and 115 knots of wind is pretty unnerving and very uncomfortable. While I was on 31st Mu, one night at like 0100, I walked down the starboard outside gangway that runs from the marine maintenance shops to the gym on the starboard side. It's about 150 feet long, and since we were in blackout conditions, it was pitch black outside. About 2/3 the way down, there was this quiz part of the defense system that sticks out off the gangway, so the hand rope cuts out through there. As soon as I let go of the rope to grab the wall on the opposite side, the ship, which was in otherwise calm, flat water, decided to suddenly drop 10 feet as if it ran across another ship's wake. As I struggled to hold on, I swear I could feel something pulling me, almost as the ship suddenly rocked 45 degrees and I was getting shaken off like water on a dog. Once it recovered, and I got my footing, it was back to flat, calm water. I blindly scrambled as fast as I could to the end, got inside and no one knew what bump I was talking about. Mind you, this is a several 100-ton warship and home to thousands. If there was chop, we'd know. Nevertheless, I took the interior passages after that. I was on board the USS Reuben James in 2012. I was standing watch in combat and decided to take a smoke break on the starboard side windbreak at 3 AM. It was cloudy, so almost pitch black. I had gone down at this time on many occasions and there are usually 1 or 2 other people up that late going out for a smoke break. When I got out there I could see nothing but the cherry of someone else's cig. I face outward and leaned on the brake and lit my Camel Gold and asked how his night was going. Having no idea who I was speaking to but figuring I would find out when I heard his voice description of his night. I got no response. I turned around to see if he had heard me and with my eyes adjusted I would have been able to make him out leaning against the steel wall. As I turned around, the moon cracked out from the clouds and slightly illuminated the small confined area I was in and the only 2 directions anyone could have walked away. There was no one there. I was alone. I had seen the cigarette and the exhale of smoke from someone on that windbreak, but no one was there and no one could have left the smoke deck without my hearing or seeing them. I don't believe in ghosts or the afterlife or any of that nonsense, but needless to say I didn't stick around outside for long. Congratulations, you just met the Klaborterman. I was heading west on at Atlantic crossing one time, coming through the Strait of Gibraltar one night. I was on bridge watch with one other guy. We have to closely monitor our radars in heavy shipping lanes like that. With radar it constantly tracks targets and whatnot and calculates your CPA. Basically, if you and the other ship maintain the same track, how close your ships will get while passing. I want to say we follow a 1 mile minimum CPA if my memory serves correctly. Well, these freaking guys. On a transport ship, I will refer to them as TV Sleepy from here out. I will refer to my ship as MY Large Aqua. About 20ish miles out, we pick them up on S-band and begin tracking the target. Well, CPA is about 2 miles. So, cool. We're good. We had previously picked up another target, another transport vessel. We squeeze the ship and turn to open up one CPA and close the CPA to TV Sleepy, fully expecting them to make a turn because they are essentially on a collision course with other ships behind us. Now we steam around 11 kts, so we've got some time, but we had a large butt TV Sleepy closing in at around 20 kts. If you know anything about ships, nothing happens quickly until you need it to. Turning takes a long time, stopping takes a long time. I can't close CPA to the other transport any more than I already had, because it changed course, and was moving faster, much larger. Fair enough, we adjusted course, larger ship has the right of way. We then begin hailing TV Sleepy on comms. TV Sleepy, this is MY Large Aqua, MY Large Aqua. Silence. About a minute later, again. TV Sleepy, MY Large Aqua. Please acknowledge. Well, CPA is closing now. They're freaking turning into our track. Dope. TV Sleepy, Large Aqua, acknowledge. Still, nothing. TV Sleepy, MY Large Aqua, our CPA is now within 1/4 mile. Please acknowledge. I look at the guy I'm on watch with. You think we should wait, Cap? No need. We'll be fine. I'm sure they're on a shift change or something, he says. Buddy, I think these freaking guys are sleeping. I pick up the radio and hail Port Authority. Port Authority, MY Large Aqua here. I'm not sure if something is wrong with comms, but TV Sleepy won't respond. Port Authority calls back. MY Large Aqua, acknowledged. We will attempt to hail them. They begin the same thing, getting more and more frustrated. Eventually they are screaming at them over comms to respond or they'll be halted and boarded. They finally come back on comms. Port Authority, we hear you. Sorry about that, we had radio issues. The ship starts turning. CPA opening. I call them on radio. TV Sleepy, MY Large Aqua, welcome back, thanks for adjusting track. Hope you had a nice nap. Large Aqua out. Our CPA ended up being about 550 meters. TV Sleepy was a 500 m container ship. Not even a full ship length. Nice. They got boarded about 15 minutes later. Dang. Intense, but good to know justice was served that day. While fishing in Alaska, after a late opening, we didn't have enough time to deliver our catch before the tide changed and had to let the boat go dry on the bottom until the next tide brought back enough water so we could get to the offload. We went to bed around 2 AM and woke up to the boat rustling about at about 3:30 AM. The tide wasn't due back that soon, so we knew it wasn't the water. We slowly crawled up and looked out the back door to find a full-grown bear on the back deck. The bear had already thrown a 40-50 pound deck plate off the boat onto the sand and was eating out of one of our fish holes. With the boat only being 32 feet, you can imagine the bear took up about 1/2, 3/4 of the entire fish deck. Luckily we were safe in the steel boat, but nevertheless it was a very close encounter. A different season, during a very low tide, our captain ran straight into the top of a reef and set the boat sideways and sinking. We had to escape overboard and be rescued by the Coast Guard. Luckily we saved the boat, got hauled out, and we're back finishing the same day. As fun as Alaskan fishing is, there are plenty of moments like this every season. This is a good one. I knew it was going to be a bear once you said Alaska and low tide. Don't know if it qualifies, but the scariest thing for me was a couple of years ago in the South China Sea. It was a quiet watch, no other traffic around, no fishermen and an overcast, but barely any wind. I went to the kitchenette to get some tea. When I walked back to my conning station, I glanced towards the bow, just in time to see a flashlight being waved and disappearing behind the bow. I threw me tea to the nearest table, ran to the bridge wing, took over controls, yanked the rudder over, and I saw him again. But with a ship, if the bow goes to port, the stern go to starboard. I waited till he was about next to the bow. I then turned to starboard to make sure he'd clear the stern as well. The guy passed right below the bridge wing. I missed him with a few meters. In this area, fishermen are sometimes in tiny little boats made of wood and without propulsion. They will fish alone until they are picked up by their mothership. Usually they have a flashlight or something that burns to alert ships. One of my friends sent me a picture of his radar screen coming into some Asian port. Can't remember which. It looked like the frickin' Milky Way, and I thought Bristol Bay, Alaska was bad. One time, I was helping a guy deliver his 47 feet catamaran from Ecuador to Tahiti. It was the first night out and there was no wind yet, so we were motoring. I was on watch and saw a lot of lights ahead. I had no idea what they were. This was before ice, so I turned 45 degrees to the right to avoid whatever it was. The owner comes up and says, "No, go back to our course." So I did. So in a half hour or so the engine on one side of the boat dies and we're stopped in the water. We get our flashlights and see we're tangled in a fishing net. The fishermen come by in their panga. They start yelling at us in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but the owner did and start arguing in Spanish. Next thing I know, the owner grabs a knife and jumps overboard at night and seems to be trying to clear the net. Not mask, no fins, no flashlight, not a big sea, but a bit of swell and the boat is rocking around. He could easily get hit in the head by the sail drive and knocked unconscious or get tangled in the net. I run below and get a mask, fins and underwater flashlight and come back to be ready to assist. Anyway, he survived, but told me later that he did get a bit tangled and thought, this is it. Also, he told me that a few months earlier he had hit a fishing net when he first arrived in Ecuador. Seems like he was on a mission to hit another net. Kinda strange. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.